Hello and welcome back to Understanding Depression. I'm truly grateful you're here today. Let me start with a question that's more common than we might think. Can I still be a person of faith and struggle with depression? This is a question that echoes in churches, mosques, temples, and synagogues around the world. It's whispered in late-night prayers and sometimes asked aloud, often in tears, often in shame. Because for many people, faith is supposed to bring hope, joy, and healing. So when someone experiences the heavy cloud of depression, it can feel like a betrayal, not only of themselves but of their beliefs. Today we're diving deep into this often ignored but deeply important topic. Can faith and depression truly coexist? And if they can, how do we make peace with that truth? Let's walk through this together, mindfully, gently, and with full compassion. Most spiritual traditions don't shy away from the reality of human suffering. In fact, they often speak of it quite profoundly. In Christianity, there's the story of Job, a man who lost everything, including his sense of God's nearness. In Islam, there's the story of Prophet Yunus in the belly of the whale, crying out in despair. In Buddhism, suffering is not only acknowledged but understood as a core part of human existence. These sacred stories remind us of something powerful. Suffering does not mean absence of faith. In fact, sometimes faith and suffering coexist more closely than we'd like to admit. They don't cancel each other out. They sit side by side. Please stay with us as we go deeper, because what we explore next might truly change how we understand both faith and mental health. Unfortunately, not everyone sees it that way. Let's talk about some of the harmful myths that people of faith with depression often hear. You're not praying hard enough. If your faith was stronger, you wouldn't feel like this. Just give it to God. Don't rely on therapy or medication. These phrases may be meant to help, but they often do more harm than good. They can deepen shame, isolate people, and keep them from seeking necessary support. Here's the truth. Depression is not a failure of faith. It's a medical condition that affects the brain, body, and emotions, just like diabetes or heart disease affects physical health. And faith should be a source of support, not a source of guilt. When we tell people that they shouldn't feel depressed if they believe in God, we're not offering comfort. We're creating distance between them and their community, between them and their own sense of spiritual worth. We must make room for vulnerability in our faith spaces, because real healing begins with acknowledgement, not denial. So let this be a gentle reminder to anyone listening. If you're struggling and still praying, still showing up, still seeking hope, your faith is not weak. It is enduring. And if you've been hurt by people who claimed your sadness was spiritual failure, I'm so sorry. You didn't deserve that. You deserve understanding. Please stay with us in this episode. We're about to explore how faith and science can actually walk hand in hand toward healing, and why you don't have to choose one over the other. It's time we let go of the false divide between faith and science, especially when it comes to mental health. Faith and medicine are not enemies. They are tools that can support each other. In fact, many people find that therapy, medication, and spiritual practice together create a powerful combination. One helps heal the mind and body. The other strengthens the heart and soul. Let's look at this with an example. Imagine someone breaking their leg. Would we tell them to skip the doctor and just pray harder? Of course not. We'd say, let's get you an X-ray, a cast, some rest, and yes, prayer too, if that's meaningful to you. The same logic applies to depression. Prayer and scripture can bring peace, comfort, and a sense of meaning. But medication and therapy can restore balance to the brain, uncover deep wounds, and teach lifelong skills. This is not an either-or situation. It's both and. When we embrace this partnership between faith and science, we stop seeing healing as something that must fit in a narrow box. We start seeing it as a tapestry, woven with many threads including biology, trauma, belief, and support. You don't have to give up your spirituality to get better. And you don't have to avoid medical help to prove your belief. Your healing can be sacred, and it can be scientific. So as we continue, I invite you to keep listening with an open mind and an open heart. You are not alone, and you are not broken. Sadly, not every faith community knows how to handle mental health with compassion. Some people find that when they open up about depression in their church, mosque, temple, or synagogue, they're met with silence. Or worse, judgment. They may hear things like, "You need to repent. You're being attacked by evil spirits. You're bringing negative energy." These responses can be devastating. Instead of feeling supported, they feel blamed. Instead of finding sanctuary, they find shame. And that pain runs deep. For many, their place of worship was once a home, a family, a source of identity. So when that space turns away from their pain, it can create a spiritual wound, on top of an already existing mental health struggle. If you've experienced that, I want to say this clearly. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't because you lacked faith. It wasn't because you weren't spiritual enough. It was because the people around you lacked understanding. But please don't give up on faith just because people failed you. There are communities out there that do welcome your full humanity, including your struggles. There are spiritual leaders who preach not from judgment, but from love. There are faith groups that embrace therapy, medication, and vulnerability as parts of the journey. You deserve that kind of space, and it's okay to search for it or even build it yourself. Stay with me. Next, we'll talk about how some people rediscover their faith in the midst of depression, and how your darkest seasons can still be deeply spiritual ones. For some people, depression doesn't destroy their faith, it deepens it. That might sound surprising, but when everything falls apart, when the joy is gone, when the prayers feel empty, when hope feels far away, somehow faith can take root in new ways. Not in the bright, loud kind of faith, but in the quiet kind. The kind that whispers, "Even if I don't feel it, I'll stay." The kind that says, "Even in silence, I'm still reaching out." The kind that allows you to say, like the psalmist in the Bible, "My soul is downcast within me, yet I will remember." This is faith in the wilderness. And for many, it becomes the most authentic form they've ever known. You don't have to be cheerful to be faithful. You don't have to always believe 100% to still belong. You don't have to fake it till you make it. In fact, one of the most spiritual things you can do is to be honest, to say, "God, I'm hurting," to say, "I don't understand," to say, "Help me carry this." Many spiritual teachers and saints throughout history have walked through deep depression. Mother Teresa spoke of long seasons of spiritual dryness. Martin Luther battled anxiety and despair. Even the prophet Elijah in sacred texts once asked for his life to end. So if you're going through the valley, you're not alone. You're walking a path others have walked too. And maybe, just maybe, faith isn't about avoiding the valley, but about who walks with you through it. Please keep listening. In our next segment, we'll explore practical ways to care for both your mental health and your faith life, without feeling like you're betraying either. So, how can we support both our mental health and our spiritual well-being without guilt or fear? Let's start with a simple truth. You are a whole person. You're not just a spirit. You're not just a mind. You are body, mind, soul, emotion, memory, and energy woven together. So healing needs to touch all those parts. If faith is important to you, then it should be part of your healing, but not the only part. And that's okay. Here are some gentle, practical ways to care for both your soul and your mental health. 1. Therapy that respects your beliefs. Find a therapist who honors your faith background. Many professionals are trained to integrate spirituality into treatment, if that's what you need. 2. Spiritual rituals as grounding tools. Prayer, meditation, reading sacred texts, or lighting candles. These can become anchors in the storm. Not fixes, but companions. 3. Talk to safe people. Whether it's a faith leader, a mentor, or a friend who listens without judgment, community matters. 4. Don't spiritualize everything. It's okay to take medication. It's okay to need rest. It's okay to need science. None of that makes you less faithful. It makes you wise. 5. Be kind to yourself in the process. Faith journeys are not linear. Healing isn't either. Your mental health is not a sign of spiritual failure. It's a reminder that you're human. And the most sacred thing you can do sometimes is to simply keep going. To wake up even if it's hard. To breathe. To reach out. To whisper a prayer. even if it feels empty. That too is sacred. We'll be back in the next segment to explore how faith communities can become true allies in mental health, not barriers to healing but bridges. Please stay with us. If we want to truly support people living with depression, our faith communities must grow in empathy and awareness. This is not just about sermons or Sunday school. It's about culture. It's about whether someone who is suffering feels safe to speak up or pressured to stay silent. So how can places of worship become safe havens for those battling depression? Let's walk through a few key steps. 1. Normalize mental health conversations. Talk about it openly. From the pulpit. In small groups. In youth classes. Treat depression as a human issue, not a moral failing. 2. Train leaders in mental health first aid. Pastors, imams, rabbis, monks. Many people trust them first. They should know how to listen, what signs to watch for, and when to refer someone to professional help. 3. Partner with mental health professionals. Invite guest speakers. Offer workshops. Create referral lists. Show your community that seeking help is not just allowed, it's encouraged. 4. Don't shame people for using medication or therapy. God works through doctors too. Healing doesn't always look miraculous. It often looks like consistency, support, and science. 5. Create small circles of care. Sometimes people don't need answers. They just need presence. Being held. Being heard. Being loved through the silence. We must become communities where tears are not feared, where hard questions are welcome, and where struggling believers are still embraced believers. Because faith isn't about perfection. It's about love. And love includes mental health. Let's take a moment to gently respond to some of the most common and often misunderstood questions about faith and depression. If I trust God, why am I still depressed? Trusting God doesn't mean you're immune to pain. Even Jesus wept. Even prophets despaired. Faith isn't a guarantee of constant happiness. It's a promise of presence, even in sorrow. Is depression a punishment for sin? No. Depression is a condition, not a consequence. Suffering does not mean you're being punished. It often means you're being human. God's love is not withdrawn during your darkest seasons. It may be more present than ever. Does taking medication mean I'm weak in faith? Not at all. Medication is a tool, just like glasses, crutches, or insulin. Taking care of your brain chemistry is not a spiritual failure. It's wisdom and stewardship. Can I still serve or lead in my faith community if I'm depressed? Yes. Your pain doesn't disqualify you from purpose. In fact, your honesty might be exactly what someone else needs to see. Faith leaders who share their mental health journeys often inspire deeper trust. What if I can't feel God right now? You're not alone. Many people of faith go through what's called the dark night of the soul. Feelings come and go, but truth and love remain. Even when you can't feel God, you are still held. These questions matter, and it's okay to wrestle with them. Your doubts do not cancel your faith. Your questions do not cancel your worth. Your depression does not cancel your dignity. If you've been hurt by people who misunderstood, please know this podcast is a place where compassion wins over judgment. Stay with us. In the next part, we'll share stories of people who've walked the road of depression and faith, and found healing, hope, and renewal on the other side. Sometimes the most powerful way to understand the coexistence of faith and depression is to hear from people who've been there. Let's take a moment to reflect on a few real, honest stories. The names have been changed, but the emotions and the journeys are deeply real. Sarah's story. Sarah was a worship leader in her church. Outwardly, she seemed vibrant and full of joy. But inside, she was struggling to get out of bed every morning. When she finally opened up to her pastor, he said, "Pray more." That response broke her spirit. But then she found a therapist who respected her faith, and slowly she began to heal. Now she uses her platform to speak out, reminding others that even worship leaders can get depressed. And that's okay. David's story. David is a youth pastor who had panic attacks and depressive episodes during seminary. He once thought he had to choose, either hide his condition or give up ministry. But his mentor told him, "You don't need to be perfect to lead. You just need to be real." Today, David openly shares his journey with his students, especially the ones who suffer in silence. And because he shares, they feel safe to speak too. Amina's story. Amina is part of a devout Muslim family. When she began to struggle with depression, she feared being labeled as weak in Iman, or possessed. But she found hope in reading the stories of the Prophet's own moments of deep grief. She began therapy alongside daily prayer, and found strength in both. These stories remind us that depression doesn't erase faith, and faith doesn't erase depression. But together, they can shape something brave and beautiful. If you're in the dark today, please remember, someone else has been there, and they found light again. Stay with us because in the next segment, we'll talk about creating a personal toolkit, faith-based and practical steps for daily mental health support. As we continue this conversation, it's important to gather some practical tools that honor both your mental health and your faith. No one-size-fits-all solution exists, but here are some ideas that might resonate with you. 1. Daily grounding practices. Start or end your day with a simple ritual. Whether it's prayer, meditation, journaling, or reading a meaningful passage. This helps create moments of calm and connection. 2. Mindful breathing and body awareness. Your body and spirit are deeply connected. Taking slow, intentional breaths can help calm anxiety and bring you back to the present moment. 3. Gratitude practice. Try to find small things to be grateful for each day. It might feel hard at first, but gratitude is a gentle way to invite light into your mental space. 4. Safe community. Surround yourself with people who understand both your faith and your mental health journey. This could be a support group, a faith circle, or trusted friends. 5. Professional support. Remember, seeking therapy or medication does not mean you lack faith. It means you're taking care of yourself wisely. 6. Allow space for honesty with God. It's okay to be raw in your prayers. Pour out your fears, anger, and doubts. Faith grows through honesty, not perfection. 7. Set realistic expectations. Healing is often slow and nonlinear. Be patient with yourself and celebrate small victories. 8. Engage in service when ready. Helping others can bring meaning and purpose, but only when you feel able. It's okay to rest first. Your toolkit will evolve over time. What matters is that you honor your whole self, body, mind, and spirit. I invite you to experiment with these tools gently and see what nourishes you. You don't have to do it all at once. Just one small step can make a difference. Please keep listening. In the next part, we'll reflect on how faith and depression shape one another, and how embracing both can lead to a fuller, richer life. So, what happens when someone lives with both deep faith and real depression? It may sound contradictory, but for many, this intersection becomes a place of profound transformation. Let's unpack this. Depression teaches us to slow down. In a world that often demands constant movement and endless productivity, depression forces us to pause. And sometimes, in that pause, we begin to listen more carefully to the whispers of grace. Faith helps us hold on. Even when the fog of depression makes everything feel meaningless, a small flicker of faith can remind us, this is not the end of my story. Depression challenges shallow theology. It pushes us to move beyond cliches like just be happy, or God won't give you more than you can handle. It invites us into a deeper, more honest spirituality, one that makes room for doubt, struggle, and mystery. Faith gives us a bigger lens. It reminds us that we are more than our diagnosis, more than our hardest days. It speaks of dignity, purpose, and divine love, even in the middle of the mess. Here's the truth. Some of the most compassionate, wise, and grounded people are those who have walked through depression with their faith intact. Scarred, perhaps, but still standing. Because when we don't run from the pain, and when we don't fake perfection, we become more real, more human, and maybe more holy. So if you feel torn between your beliefs and your emotions, know this. You're not failing. You're becoming. And in that becoming, there's room for grace. So much grace. In our final segment, we'll wrap up with a gentle reminder of hope and how you can begin walking forward, one day at a time. If you've made it this far, thank you. Truly. You've given yourself the gift of reflection, honesty, and a little more self-compassion today. This podcast wasn't meant to solve depression. It was meant to open space. Space for truth, tenderness, and the reminder that healing is possible. So what now? If you're in a place of pain, reach out. Talk to someone you trust. Find a therapist, a mentor, a friend. And if you haven't yet, give yourself permission to rest, to cry, to breathe. Your humanity is not a problem to fix. It's a life to tend. Let's be part of communities that stop judging and start holding space. Let's keep learning, listening, and showing up imperfect but real. And if this podcast helped you even a little, please like, comment, and share it. You never know who might be needing this message today. Someone in your circle might be one silent listen away from feeling understood. And carry this truth. You are not alone, and your faith still has space to grow. Even here, even now. We'll see you in the next episode.